Okay guys, welcome back. We're going to start off, we're not going to do a review today because we're going to do the second part of the Jeffrey Dahmer story that I started in the last video that I made. Now today's video is actually going to talk about his crimes. So that's what we're going to discuss today, the actual crimes that he committed. And I do have to give a disclaimer. There's a lot of graphic detail. I actually cannot do this video without doing the graphic detail because the things that he did was just horrible. There's going to be, a violence, sexual content, just a lot of bad stuff. It's going to be very graphic. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer that viewer discretion is advised. I also did want to let you guys know that I am in my car. I'm actually working like I've done in the past. So if you hear background noise, the GPS, I apologize. Something else
in a quarter mile, take exit 9A for Kentucky 922 South Newtown Park toward Lexington.
And I just wanted to let you know, I will not be mentioning any of the victims' names because the family just don't want their names mentioned, don't want people to keep talking
Take
about
exit
what
9A,
happened
then merge onto Kentucky 922 South.
They've actually been times that people have wrote books about this or done videos on them, and the family has actually sued them for mentioning their family's names and not asking permission because, like I said, the family just wants to put this all behind them and it quit getting drug up, and it's just kind of to protect themselves from getting harassed about what happened to their family members. So I don't want to offend anybody or bring more suffering to these families.
Continue on
like
Kentucky
that.
922 South for 1 mile.
I won't be mentioning any of the victims' names. The only thing I will be referring to them as is victims. It may be like I may say victim number 1, victim number 2, that kind of thing. I'll mention like their ages and that kind of thing and what happened to them, but no names will be mentioned as far as the victims go. So I hope that you guys understand why that I won't mention their names. It's just I don't want to offend or bother any of these families. They've been through enough. Okay, so as in my last video, I actually mentioned a little bit about his first victim and talked a little bit about it, and that's kind of where I left off at. And so that's where I'm going to pick up at, is at his first victim. And as I mentioned in the last video, there's so much information out there about this case and about this
in 800 feet, turn right onto North Broadway.
That I kind of had to go through and decipher and pick what I thought would be the most important facts. And
take the next right onto North Broadway.
I kind of had to leave some of it out because there's just so much information and so much to this that I just had to pick the most important things. And like I did the last time, I will be leaving different links and different things in the comments of videos. You can actually go watch like the whole
in a quarter mile, turn right onto West Main Street.
Interviews from Jeffrey Dahmer himself and his parents. So sit back, grab you some snacks and drinks because this video is going to be pretty long because there's just so much information on this case, and there's just so much to it. I mean, he had 17 victims, so it's going to be a pretty long one. So just kick back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so his first victim. This was in 1978. It was just 3 weeks after his graduation. This is the victim that was mentioned that he had already killed when his friends come to visit him shortly after graduation. But he was driving down the road. He seen this hitchhiker and he was attracted to him. So he pulled over, he picks this hitchhiker up, and he asked the hitchhiker to go back to his house, you know, drink with him, hang out, party with him a little bit. Well, the hitchhiker decided that he wanted to, so he went back to the house and he partied and drank and that kind of thing. And Jeff actually made some type of, it doesn't go into detail what comment, but he made a comment to him, like a gay kind of attraction comment. And the hitchhiker wasn't gay, so this made him uncomfortable, and he just decided he wanted to go, you know, to leave, to get out of here. So when he told Jeff that he wanted to leave, he was just upset. Jeff didn't want him to go nowhere, you know. So he was sitting in a chair, and Jeff come up behind him and hit him in the head twice with a 10-pound dumbbell. Now, after he fell to the floor unconscious, Jeff took the bar of the dumbbell and actually strangled him to death. Okay, so Jeff strangled him to death. He's laying on the floor dead. Jeff decides to masturbate over top of his dead body. So Jeff stood over top of him and masturbated and pleased himself over top of this dead body. So then after he's done, you know, masturbating, he actually takes the body and he dissects it, just like he did with the dead animals, because, you know, Jeff is obsessed with the insides of dead things. So he dissected this body, and then he buries the body out back in like the wooded area beside the house. Now, I don't know what was going through his mind. I don't think anybody will ever know what was going through his mind. But a couple of weeks later, he actually unburies the body, and he dismembers it, takes it apart, and he takes the method that his dad taught him when he was little, and actually melted the flesh and cleaned the flesh away from the bones. Now, after he done that, the mix of the melted flesh and the chemicals that he used to melt it off, he flushed it down the toilet. Then he took the bones and he wrapped them in paper and took a sledgehammer and crushed the bones up, and then took them and spread them out in the woods behind the house.
In 1,000 feet, turn right.
That was Jeff's first victim, how he did it and what he did with the body. Okay, so 6 short weeks after Jeff's first murder, Lionel and his then fiance Sherry, and Lionel is Jeff's father, come to visit, and he discovered that Jeff had been living in the family home by himself. You know, now Jeff's father knows, you know, an 18-year-old boy living by himself, he's not going to be very productive because he hasn't matured enough yet to be really productive. So Lionel, I can't talk today, probably because, well, I'm working and the weather is horrible. Rain. There's nothing but rain. So, Lionel wanted Jeff to succeed in life. So, Lionel told Jeff, you go to college, get you a degree so you can get you a good job, and I'll pay for it. So, Lionel went ahead and paid for college. Jeff went ahead and started at college in August because his dad, paid for it, and he was going to go for a business degree so that maybe he could start his own business and have a successful life. Now, Jeff continued to drink. He kept drinking. You know, he wouldn't stop his drinking. His grades wasn't very good. He was failing. The best class that he done, you know, his best class, the one he got the best grades in, was a rifle class. And his grade point average was only a 0.45. So, yeah, that's pretty bad. Like, Jeff wasn't doing good in college at all. Now, after just 3 short months, Jeff did drop out of college. So his dad wasted that money, like paid all that money and wasted it, and Jeff didn't do anything with it. Kind of crazy, really. I wish I had somebody, you know, that was able to pay for my college, all that stuff. You know, but most families just can't do that, you know. Just can't pay for college, and that's why a lot of people don't go to college, so. But I'm getting off subject, sorry guys. So Jeff dropped out after just 3 months. Okay, so Jeff's father found out, you know, that Jeff dropped out of school, and he's trying everything to make sure his son just succeeds in life. So he sat down and he talked to Jeff, and he told Jeff, you know, in college you did really good in the rifle class, so I think a good thing for you to do would be join the United States Army. I think it's something that you would succeed at. So Jeff did join the United States Army. He actually joined the United States Army in January of 1979. Hold on just a second, guys. This traffic's getting pretty heavy and this rain's kind of bad. So he joined the United States Army in January of 1979, and he trained as a medical specialist. So he actually was in the medical field in the Army. Okay, so on July 13th of 1979, after Jeff's training and everything, he was actually deployed to Germany, and there he would serve as a combat medic. Now, talking to people and everything, they said that he was an average to
In a
above
quarter
average
mile, use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto Woodhill Drive.
soldier, and they all said that, you know, he seemed very caring, and he cared about his patients and the people that he would help. And later, Jeff did say that he actually enjoyed being in the Army.
Use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto
But
Woodhill Drive.
unfortunately, Jeff continued with his alcohol abuse, and his performance declined, and he ended up getting discharged from the Army. So he was actually given an honorable discharge, and on March the 24th, hold on just a second, guys, sorry. See what this car is gonna do. Okay, so on March 24th, 1981, he was given a briefing, and then they would give him a ticket to anywhere he wanted to go. They paid for him to get to anywhere he wanted to go, wherever he wanted to settle down at, and that kind of thing. Now, Jeff did not want to go back home. He didn't want to disappoint his father, you know, because his father was trying to help him, and he just didn't want to disappoint his father. So he didn't go back to Ohio. Instead, he went to Miami Beach, Florida. Now, there in Miami Beach, Florida, he actually got a job as a phlebotomist. No. It wasn't a phlebotomist, I'm so sorry. It was in like a burger joint. He gets his job as a phlebotomist later on, I'm so sorry. But he gets a job at a burger joint, and he rented a room at a nearby hotel. Now, Jeff spent most of his money on alcohol and stuff, and so he ended up getting evicted from his room. So what Jeff did is he continued working, but he stayed on the beach. He slept on the beach like homeless until finally he gave his father a call and asked his father if he could come back to Ohio with them, because he didn't have anywhere to go.
Continue
and he
on Woodhill Drive for 3/4 of a mile.
Honorable discharge from the Army. Okay, guys, so I'm getting wet from this rain and taking orders, so you're gonna see me get a little wetter as the videos go on, as the video goes on, because I have to stop out to get the deliveries. So sorry about the wet look here that I got going on. Okay, so back in Ohio, he actually moved back in Ohio in September November of that year. So back in Ohio, Jeff did good when he first got there. He did chores, kept himself busy, helped out around the house while he was looking for work. Now, 2 weeks after, hold on a second, let me see. Okay, I thought that car was gonna try get too close and actually hit me. So sorry about the smoking too, guys. 2 weeks after he moved back to Ohio, he actually got arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct. Now, he was convicted and fined $60 with a 10-day sentence that was suspended. Now, Lionel, he was just concerned for his son. He tried his best to get him off of that alcohol, and he was just unsuccessful. He tried everything, and he was just desperate to help his son and get his son off the alcohol and get his son to where, his son was able to take care of himself and live a good life, And the only thing that Lionel could think of is the only person out of the family that Jeff actually showed any affection to at all was his grandma. So he come up with the idea to send Jeff to live with his grandma. So hopefully
continue on East New Circle Road for 1.5 miles.
Get him off of the alcohol and help him, because he just wasn't doing it for Lionel, and so Lionel was ready to try anything. So in December of 1981, Jeff actually went to live with his grandma. Okay, so in December of 1981, he did move in with his grandma in West Allis, Wisconsin. I hope I'm saying that city right. I really hope I am. But things was going really good at first. So Jeff was, even though he did remain drinking, it wasn't quite as bad, but he still drank. And he actually was going to church with his grandma and out actively looking for a job and helping his grandma around the house and stuff. So things was going really good at first. And Jeff seemed to be getting together, He slowly stopped, drinking as much, and things looked up. It looked like Jeff was going to do good at his grandma's. Okay, so after some time at his grandma's house, he actually found a job working as a phlebotomist at the Milwaukee Blood Plasma Center. Now, he worked there for 10 months, so he kept that job for a while, but then he got laid off. So, he was doing pretty good, and he was doing good with the job, but then he got laid off. Now, shortly before he did get laid off on August the 7th of 1982, he did get arrested again for indecent exposure. What happened was he was at the Wisconsin State Fair, and he exposed himself to 25 people. Now, this included men, women, and children. And he did go to court, get convicted, and he had a $50 fine and court costs that he had to pay. So, his troubles was starting back up right before he got laid off from his job at the Blood Plasma Center. And he did start drinking more heavily at that time. So he was kind of backsliding on his, on himself. He was just backsliding and going back to old routines. So in January of 1985, Jeff did get hired onto the Milwaukee Chocolate Factory as a mixer, and he worked 6 nights a week. He was off on Saturdays, and he would work from 11 p.m. at night till 7 a.m. Of the morning. So he did get him a job. He was still drinking and things of that sort. Now, shortly after he got his job, he was in the library and he was reading a book, and a gentleman passed him a note and offered Jeff oral sex. Now, Jeff didn't take him up on it or anything like that, but it did bring back Jeff's old fantasies of being in charge and things like that. Jeff had got these fantasies at a young age of being in control and dominance and stuff. And this letter from this man and this attraction to this man brought all that back. Now, Jeff started hanging out in gay bars and bathhouses and gay bookstores and that kind of thing. And while he was at the bathhouses, he did start having sexual encounters. Now, his partners, he said it aggravated him that his partners would move around and talk and that kind of thing. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to be in control, and he didn't want them to be vocal or move around a lot. He wanted to control them. That was his fantasies. So he didn't really enjoy it. And it said that he actually had trouble sometimes performing because of it. So what Jeff ended up doing was he would drug his partner, and then after they, passed out from the drugs, then he would perform sexual tasks. He would do sexual things to them. Well, the owner of the bathhouse actually caught on to this, and so they evoked Jeff's membership, and he wasn't allowed to go back to doing that, or to that bathhouse. So that destroyed Jeff's plans. Okay, so in August of 1986, Jeff was arrested again for masturbating in front of a 12-year-old little boy. So, it's one thing to be gay and sexually assault a grown man, but a child, there's something seriously wrong with this man. And you'll hear more of the disturbing things that he did throughout the story, but children, I don't know, there's something very mentally wrong with this man, or was very mentally wrong with this man. I just don't understand. I don't know. I guess I'll never understand things that involve a child getting abused in any way. Okay, so
in
back
1,000
to the
feet,
story.
turn left onto Todd's Road.
So, on March 10th of 1987, Jeff went to court and he got convicted of this crime. Now, he got put on a year's probation and he got ordered to receive counseling. To me,
take the next
that
left onto
wasn't
Todd's
enough.
Road.
He didn't get enough. They let him, back out on the street after doing this to a child. I think that was a big mistake by the justice system of letting him back out on the street after this incident. I think that the justice system failed
in a quarter mile, turn right onto Mano War Boulevard East.
So on November 20th, 1987, Jeff would claim another victim. He had been at a bar.
Continue on Sir Bar and wait for 3/4 of a mile.
Man, and he invited this man back to a hotel room at the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee. Jeff said he didn't want to kill this person. He had no intention on killing this person. He just wanted to drug him and lay beside him in the bed and explore his body. Basically, he just wanted to drug him and sexually assault him. But he said what he remembered was drugging the man, because the man came back with him. So he drugged the man and he explored his body. And then Jeff went to sleep. And then he said when he woke up, he was laying on top of the man, and he looked down, and the man's chest was black and blue.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Gray Leg Way.
And there was blood coming from this man's mouth, and he was dead. Jeff said his hands and his forearm was all bruised, extensively bruised as well. He said he doesn't remember killing the man, and he had no intention on killing him.
Take the next right onto Gray Leg Way.
He had to have killed him when he woke up and found him, and he was bruised the way he was. Okay, so to dispose of this man's body that he had killed, He bought a large suitcase and he stuffed the body in this large suitcase and he took it back to his grandmother's house. And at his grandmother's house, what he did was he dismembered the body. He took the head, cut it off. He took the head and he wrapped it in a blanket, and the rest of he cut off the legs and the arms away from the torso, and then he proceeded in removing the flesh from the bones. He put the flesh in the garbage bags, in some garbage bags, and he took the bones and wrapped them up in a sheet and beat them with a sledgehammer and, busted them up into little splinters. And he disposed of the meat and the bones. It doesn't really go into detail where he put the flesh and the bones, where he disposed of them. It doesn't go into detail about that. I couldn't really find anything about that. But the head, he kept that for 2 weeks, and then he boiled the head in bleach and silox mix, and his intentions was keeping the skull as an item to masturbate to. But the bleach made it too brittle, so he wasn't able to keep it, so he ended up just kind of crushing it up and disposing of it as well. Now, 2 months after that victim, Jeff met a 14-year-old Native American sex worker. Now, there is so much wrong with that statement. Just so many things wrong with that in itself. First of all, why is there a 14-year-old sex worker? Okay, why is Jeff going after a child? That's a child. But he offered this boy $50 to go back to his place and just take nude pictures for him. So the boy's like, yeah, I'll do that. That's $50, So he goes back to he's still living with his grandma at this time. So he goes back and takes the boy down in the cellar. And him and the boy had, sexual encounters, is the way he put it. They had sex. And then he drugged this boy and strangled him. Now, he dismembered this boy's body the same way as he did the other victim. And he put it in trash bags. And he tried again with the skull to keep it. And it also just was too brittle, so he disposed of this boy's body in the same manner as the other one, including the head. So you can tell this guy's a little crazy. His poor victims, especially the children. I mean, there's something definitely wrong with this man. March 24th of 1988, Dahmer met a 22-year-old bisexual man outside of a gay bar called the Phoenix. Now, he offered this man $50 just to come and entertain him for the night, to spend the night with him. And once Jeff got him back to his grandma's down in the cellar, he drugged this man with sleeping pills. And once the man fell asleep, then he strangled him to death with a leather strap. He then performed oral sex on the body, and then he dismembered it and disposed of it in the same manner as the other 2 victims that he dismembered and disposed of. So this is just a routine with Jeff, and unfortunately it gets worse as time goes on. On April 23rd, Jeff actually, and this guy's lucky. Let me just tell you that first and foremost. He's very lucky. Okay, so on April 23rd, as I said, Jeff lured another man to his grandmother's cellar and drugged him. And before the man passed out, both Jeff and the victim heard his grandmother call down, "Jeff, is that you?" Now, he tried to convince his grandmother that he was alone, but he couldn't. He couldn't convince her. She knew that somebody was down there. So Jeff thought it wise not to kill this victim, so he waited on this victim to pass out, and then he took the victim to the county general hospital and just left him there. So this victim was lucky that Grandma called down and was hollering at Jeff. I mean, poor grandma. This is happening in her house. I mean, and she doesn't even know. Like, this, if, could you imagine if she had walked down and caught him? What would he have done to his grandma? Because, I mean, this man is mentally sick. What would he have done to his poor grandma if she had caught him in the act of doing these horrible things? I just wonder, would he have killed her? I mean, what would he have done? Because he is mentally disturbed. September of 1988, Jeff's grandmother asked him to move out of the house. She hated to ask him to, but she just couldn't handle the fact that Jeff kept bringing strange men home, and because she was aware apparently that Jeff was bringing men home, and she didn't like that. She didn't want that going on at her house. And also she said there's just a bad odor coming from downstairs where Jeff stayed at, and she just didn't want to put up with the bad odor anymore. So Jeff, on September the 25th, he rented him a one-bedroom apartment on North 25th Street. And he moved in there on September 25th. Okay, so the very next day after Jeff got moved into his apartment, he got arrested again for drugging and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Now, there's not a lot of information as to how he actually got caught and they found out about this, but he did get arrested for that, and his dad hired him a lawyer. Now, the lawyer was a Boyle guy, and he actually ordered an evaluation, like a psych
Turn left onto
evaluation
Sir Barton
on
Way.
Jeff. And I'll go into detail on, the findings and things like that. Give me just a second. I'm trying to, in a lot
Continue
of
on
traffic
Sir Barton
again.
Way for 1.5 miles.
Okay, so this lawyer, his name is Gerald Boyle. He ordered these psychological evaluations on Jeff, and they did one. And in the first one, they found Jeff was suffering from alienation, and in another one, a couple months later, they determined that Jeff was an impulsive person, and he was suspicious of others. It's almost like he thought others was kind of out to get him or harm him in ways. Now, his probation officer actually mentioned a prior psychological evaluation that Jeff had underwent, and in this one they had actually diagnosed Jeff with. So in that evaluation, Jeff was actually diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. Now, in January of 1989, Jeff was convicted of second-degree sexual assault on this little boy. The sentencing for this conviction was actually suspended until
Continue on Man O' War Boulevard West for 4 miles.
Until May of 19. So on, like I said, his sentence was postponed until May of 1989. Now on March 20th, he was, because they let him out after he got convicted until his sentencing trial. But then on March 20th, he was let out on a 10-day from work for Easter. And during this time, because, he lost his apartment and things like that, he actually moved back in with his poor grandma. Poor grandma was going to have to be dealing with Jeff again. 2 months after his conviction, and 2 months prior to his sentencing, Jeff murdered his 5th victim. Now, Jeff found this particular victim very attractive. He was very attracted to him, and he, the next day, he took the victim and put him in his grandma's bathtub. I'm not sure where his grandmother was at, But he put the victim in his bathtub. He dismembered the body. He cut the head off, and he actually placed, because he wanted to keep parts of this victim, so he placed the head in a jar with acetone, and he cut the man's genital area off and also placed it in a jar of acetone. And then with the rest of the body parts and the body, he did the same as he did before, and he melted the flesh off away from, tore the flesh off of the bones and then crushed the bones and disposed of them. And it was later found, I actually earlier didn't tell you this, but it was later found that Jeff was storing those in his grandmother's garage, because later his grandmother complained about the smell. So he stored stuff there in his grandmother's garage for a while. And then later, just disposed of the rest of it after a while. Now, after Jeff put the head and the genital area in the acetone in the jars, he actually took them to work and stored them in his work locker. So he kept them with him at work. He always wanted that man's parts with him because he was just so attracted to this man. Now, on May 23rd, 1989, Jeff was sentenced to 5 years probation, 1 year in the correctional facility with a work release so that he could go back and forth to work and not lose his job. And he also had to register as a sex offender. Now, to me, that's not enough. That's just not enough of a punishment. That so many people could have been saved. Yeah, I feel like if the justice system didn't fail in this way, they let him back out on the street. And I feel like so many people's lives could have been saved if it hadn't been for that. So again, I feel like the justice system failed in this case. Okay, so after Jeff got released from the correctional facility, he went back to his grandmother's. And then in May of 1990, he actually moved back into an apartment of his own. Now, this was in Oxford Apartments, and this was in a high crime area, but Jeff didn't really care about that. It was cheap. It was $300 a month. It was furnished. It included his utilities. It was close to his work, so this was perfect for him. And that was in the North 25th Street area. Again, it was actually 924, not North 25th Street. So he was back in his own place again and back out of his grandma's. So that's good for the grandma, because that stuff's not going to be going on in grandma's house no more. Jeff moved into apartment 213 in the Oxford apartment building. And he took his severed head and his severed genitals with him and stored those in his apartment. Now, within a week of Jeff moving into his new apartment, he met his next victim, which was a 32-year-old sex worker, and he offered him $50 to come back to his house and have sex with him. So the man went back with him, and Jeff gave him a drink with 7 sleeping pills in it, and Jeff strangled this man. Now, the next day, he went out and he bought a Polaroid camera, and he positioned this man's body into suggestive positions and took Polaroid pictures of him. And then he dismembered the body and melted it all away in acid, and that way he could pour it down the drain. It was just liquefied. And then he kept the guy's skull, and he later spray painted it to make it look like a fake skull, and he stored it in a filing cabinet. 1 week later, on or about May 27th, Jeff lured another victim to his home, and he accidentally drank the sleeping pills himself, that mixture of the drink with the sleeping pills. And while he was passed out, now this intended victim actually stole and robbed Jeff. He robbed him of $300, a watch, and some clothes and things. Now, he never reported it to the police, but later disclosed information to his probation officer that he had been robbed. Okay, guys, this weather, I mean, it's just getting so bad with the rain. The rain's getting worse and things like that. So, when I get home from work, I'm actually will finish
turn right onto Winchester
this video
Road.
up. I will finish it at home, finish filming at home. So I'm gonna be dressed differently, obviously, and it'll just be different. So I'm
In
gonna go
1,000
ahead
feet, turn left onto Elkhorn
and
Road.
apologize for that ahead of time. The difference in the looks and the difference in the video setting and stuff. I just wanted to let you guys know that ahead of time. So I'll get this done when I
Take
get
the next
home
left
and then
onto
get it
Elkhorn
uploaded.
Road, then turn
Thank
left.
you for watching and being patient with me through this horrible weather. Okay, guys, so now I'm home. I'm dry. Excited about that. And we're gonna go ahead and continue with the story. So Jeff's next victim was a 27-year-old acquaintance of him, and he lured him back to his apartment. And he killed the man, strangled him after he drugged him, and just kind of laid by his body. And then instead of dismembering his body and doing like he normally did, he actually put this body in the freezer for a couple of months. And then after he got the body out of the freezer, he did his normal process. But in this instance, or in this case, he actually accidentally destroyed the skull, and he had put it in the oven to dry it, and it exploded. Now later, after he was caught, he told the police that he regretted not being able to keep anything from this victim, and that bothered him that he didn't get to keep that skull, because he wanted to keep the skulls of his victims. Hi, Kiwi. Yeah, we're gonna be dealing with Kiwi. He's I don't know if he's gonna leave us alone or not. Okay, so Jeff's next victim was a 22-year-old Chicago native, and he offered the man $50 to come back to his house and let Jeff rub on him and hi Kiwi, rub on him and just kiss on him and stuff. Well, when Jeff tried to perform oral sex on him, the man informed him that it would cost him more. So Jeff got mad, and Jeff didn't have anything to drug him with. He only had 2 sleeping pills. He was out of them. So he slashed his artery in his neck, and the man bled to death within minutes. So then he put the man's body in the bathtub to dismember it like he always did. And it said that while Jeff told the authorities after he got caught that while he was dismembering the body, he would kiss the man's skull, the severed head, kiss him and talk to him during the whole process. And he ended up keeping that skull just like he did with the other victims. This victim, that he kissed his head and everything like that, this would be the first victim that Jeff actually ate his heart. So this was the first victim that Jeff ate any of it. And he actually stored some of his flesh, other parts of his flesh, in the refrigerator so that he could eat it later. The next victim was another 22-year-old, and he coaxed him back to his apartment by offering him money to pose nude for photographs. And Jeff drugged him and strangled him and killed him. And Jeff said later, after he got caught, that after the man was drugged and strangled, he didn't feel attracted to him anymore. So he didn't keep any of this man's parts or eat any of him. But what he did do was take photographs of okay, Kiwi, come on. Took photographs of him during every step of the dismemberment process. So he just kept those photographs, but that's all he kept from this victim because he just didn't feel attracted to him. Okay, so next, in February of 1991, Jeff lured a 17-year-old to his apartment with promise of money for posing nude and sexual intercourse. Now, Jeff drugged this 17-year-old. He handcuffed his hands behind his back and then strangled him with a leather strap. He cut the man's head off, the hands, and the genital area, and kept those from this victim. He also took pictures of the process of the, can I help you? Of the process of the dismemberment. Okay, so on April 7th, Jeff got his next victim, and the victim was a 19-year-old. Now, he lured him back to his apartment, and he drugged him. And he had come up with an idea that he could make like a zombified kind of, make a person zombified. And he thought that if he did, he would quit the killing and all the violence, because he just wanted somebody that he could control and use for what he wanted. So what he did to this victim is he drugged him. He drilled a hole in the top of his head and poured acid into that hole, and he thought that that would make him into a zombie state to where he could control him. Well, it said that the victim actually woke up, looked at Jeff, and said, "My head hurts, what time is it?" So at that point, Jeff decided and realized that this didn't work. He was going to have to try something else. So he strangled the man, killed him, and dismembered his body, and kept his skull and ate his heart, and then just disposed of him just like with the rest of the individuals that he killed. So by 1991, the residents in the apartment building started complaining about the smell coming from Jeff's apartment. And I mean, you can think about it, and it would stink if you think about it. There's dead bodies being stored in there. So the apartment building manager called Jeff, and Jeff, on the first occasion, said that it was due to his freezer had went bad, and all his meat that it was in his freezer had spoiled, and that's what the smell was, and that he would take care of it. Well, there were still complaints coming in, you know, so the manager called back a second time. And he then blamed it on that he had a tropical fish tank and all of his fish died, and he just hadn't had time to clean it, and that's where the smell was coming from, but that he would take care of it. Now, the manager, I guess, didn't call back after that, and there wasn't no more complaints because I guess Jeff did something to get the smell out. So good thing that the manager didn't actually come to check, because who knows what Jeff would have done to the manager if he had. On May 26th of 1991, Jeff found a 14-year-old boy, and he promised him money if he'd just come and take pictures at his apartment. So the boy went. Well, Jeff drugged the boy. He drugged the boy, and then he drilled a hole in his head and put an acid mix in it. And then he performed oral sex on the boy. And then he led him to the bedroom and laid him down on the bed. And then Jeff laid there and drank several beers beside him, because the boy was passed out from the pills and stuff. And when he ran out of beer, he actually went down to the local bar to buy more beer and have a drink, and because the boy was passed out on his bed. When Jeff returned to his apartment, the boy was sitting on the sidewalk and had 3 women surrounding him. And he tried to convince the women that that was his lover and that he was 19 years old, but the women wasn't buying it. And so they had already called the police. So when the police arrived, there was 3 of them there. And when they arrived, can I help you, Kiwi? What? Is you good bird? So, when the police arrived, Jeff convinced the police officers that that was his lover, that they were just having, a quarrel, and that he was drunk, and that's why he was acting so strange. And so the police believed it, and told the ladies that they just needed to mind their own business, that it was a lover's quarrel. And the women just kept arguing with the police officers, but they wouldn't do anything about it. So I think the police maybe should have checked into this a little further, and I think that they kind of failed this boy. I think this was another fail on their part in this case, because they should have checked the IDs and things like that of this boy. Yes, Kiwi, can I help you? What can I do for you? June 20th, Jeff had his next victim, and it was a 21-year-old, and he led him back to his apartment in promise of a photo shoot, a professional photo shoot. Yes, Kiwi, I know. Yes. Are you a good bird? Kiwi's a good bird. I know, Kiwi's a good bird. And he, did his normal. He drugged the guy, strangled him, laid with him for a while, and then dismembered his body. He put his head and some of his flesh in bags, and then put them in the freezer with this case, and then disposed of the rest of it. And on July 5th, he lured a 23-year-old victim to his apartment to stay with him for the weekend. They had sexual intercourse, and then Jeff drugged him and drilled a hole into his head, in which he not only once but twice poured boiling water into his skull and into his brain, trying to make his zombie that he wanted. Now, unfortunately, 2 days later, because he was in a coma after the water got put into his head, and 2 days later he died. And Jeff just dismembered his body and kept his skull, ate his heart and his genital areas, and then disposed of the rest of him. So on July 24th, he had a 24-year-old victim that he performed sexual acts with. They had sex, and he drugged him, and he intended on keeping this guy alive for a while, just keeping him drugged, because he really liked this one. He was really attracted to this individual. So he called into work and asked for days of absence, and they granted him that. But the next day they suspended him because he had been missing work, because he had to deal with the bodies of the people he'd been killing. So he'd been missing a lot of work. So after an unsuccessful attempt to keep him drugged, Jeff strangled him, and he dismembered him. He ate the heart of this guy. He didn't want to let any part of this one go because he really liked this one. So he ate his heart, and he froze his body in the freezer, like his whole body, and he did his head just like he did the other one so that he could keep it. He intended on keeping him because he really liked him. On July the 19th, he lured a 25-year-old to his apartment. He did his usual. He drugged him, performed sexual acts on him, and then strangled him. And then he dismembered then he actually left this victim laying on his bed covered with a sheet until the 21st. Now, on the 21st, he uncovered it, and he found that the head was covered with maggots. So he dismembered, cut the head off, cleaned it up. Yes, can I help you? And put this head in the freezer, and then he put this body and melted the flesh off with the acid and did like he had done before with the other bodies so that he could get rid of it. Yes, can I help you? Ow, Kiwi, don't bite. That's not nice. On July 22nd, 1991, Jeff would lure a 32-year-old to his apartment. And this victim, or would-be victim, as soon as he got into the apartment, he just knew something wasn't right. Because there was boxes of acid sitting in the floor and everything. And Jeff pointed for him to look at his fish. And when he did that, he managed to get one handcuff in one of his hands. He couldn't manage to get his hands handcuffed together like he'd want. But then he told him to go to the bedroom with him to do nude pics, the nude pictures. And the man did go to the bedroom with Jeff to try to not upset him because he didn't know what he was capable of. So they were laying on the bed, and Jeff laid his head over onto this man's chest and had a knife, and he told this man, "I'm going to cut your heart out." Now, eventually, the man was able to escape from Jeff, and he brought the police back to the apartment, and Jeff knew that he was caught, so he cooperated with the police. And he ended up writing out a 3-page long confession of all his crimes and everything he did. And he was actually convicted of all the murders and everything, and he spent the rest of his life in prison. Now, there's been several interviews that he did, and he said that he realizes he had a problem, that he tried to stop doing what he was doing, but he just couldn't. He realized he had a problem, and he said in the interview, I watched it, and I watched the trial and everything, and he said that he was glad that he got caught, that he actually wanted death for himself because he just couldn't stop doing what he was doing. There's several interviews that he's done, and he regretted doing what he did, but he just couldn't stop because he had mental health issues. That he was never properly diagnosed with what the issues was, but he did have mental health issues. And I will, after the video, I will put links down in the comments to the interviews and things like that, so that you guys can watch those. Right, Kiwi? November the 24th of 1990, but on November 24th of 1994, Jeff was actually beat to death while in prison. He was beat at the prison and then took to the hospital, where later he died. So that's when Jeff died and how he died. But I will post comments, links down in the comments below the video so that you guys can watch actually the interviews of Jeff. There's one to where you can actually watch his trial, and then some interviews of his parents and things. And like always, at the end of the video, I will post pictures of, different pictures from this case. And nothing real bad. I would never do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the explanation of Jeffrey Dahmer and all the crimes that he committed. If you ever at any time have a story that you want me to research and cover, just comment down below and I will be sure to do that. And from now on, I'm going to start doing my videos at home. It's just too hard to do them at work. And you'll probably get visits from Kiwi. Kiwi's probably going to be talking to you all. Ain't that right, Kiwi? Kiwi. I'm actually going to get him involved a lot because he's pretty entertaining. So he'll probably help entertain you guys. Huh? Yes. Because you're a good bird. Good bird. But let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what you guys think that maybe was wrong with Jeff. Why he did such horrible things. Just comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought. And as always, you guys stay safe. Be careful. And I'll see you guys next time. Say bye, Kiwi.
Bye, Kiwi. Tell him bye. I don't think he's going to talk right now. He's too busy aggravating me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye till next time, guys.